And welcome, good afternoon, to another AAU Building Bricks Youth Leadership Show segment. I am your host, Herman Dunham Jr., along with my main man and co-host,
William Teddy Portwine, and we welcome you to the show. This is our final show for the year. And before we get it on the way, we would just like to thank the Whitney E. Foundation and our sponsors, Roger and Shavana Johnson, for making this all possible.
Absolutely. So I'm looking forward to this show today. We're going to be talking a great deal about fatherhood, and there's a lot going on with absentee fathers and delinquent fathers and child support.
Oh yeah,
and just that whole system in itself. What we believe that people need to know. Whether it's working, whether it's not working, and then we're just going to kind of break into. We have some clips, and we're going to break into some deeper conversation. So today, what's rare about our show is that we don't have a guest. So you really just kind of get into the mindset of Ted and myself, and exactly where we're taking this show for next year, and let's get rolling. So you wanna open us up with something, Ted?
Yeah. Today, we're going to talk about the system, the family court system. We're not so much going to talk about the deadbeat dads and the baby mama drama. We're going to talk about the system, because a lot of times people don't know or don't realize, they're so busy arguing with each other because of divide and conquer, that they fail to realize that the system plays a very intricate part in both of their demises. And that translates to the children's demise.
Right.
So today we got a real good show. It's going to be more based on the system. And we have a couple of clips that we would like to share. There's been a lot of things, as you said, going on around the country.
Yes.
And our first clip is of a man from Detroit, you may have seen it, whose DNA exonerated him from not being the father of this particular child. The mother also came forward and said the only reason she put him on the paperwork was because they told her that she needed to have a male in order to receive public assistance.
Right.
Now, had she known how this was going to affect this man's life, I don't think she would have done it.
Right.
But that's just how the system is. And now they're telling this man to pay $30,000, which he doesn't know for a child that's not his. And more importantly, where's the real father? He should have some accountability in this.
Absolutely.
Right. So right now we're going to go to the first clip. This is the gentleman from Detroit and his situation.
Carnell Alexander is a wanted man tonight.
The state of Michigan is demanding he pay thousands of dollars or go to prison.
And it's all because of a child support case that has spiraled out of control.
And as 7 Action News reporter Kim Russell reports, it's a case with a bizarre twist because everybody agrees the kid is not his.
I feel like I'm standing in front of a brick wall with nowhere to go.
Carnell Alexander is forever haunted by the big news he got in 1991 during a traffic stop in Detroit. You're a deadbeat dad, the cop said. You're a wanted man. You're coming with me.
I knew I didn't have a child, so I was kind of blown back.
Blown back and locked up. Carnell was arrested for failing to pay almost $70,000 in child support. The state said he fathered a child in 1987 and had ignored a court order to pay up. It was the first Carnell had heard of it. And when you were telling them in court
that it was not my child, he told me it was too late to get a DNA.
But he did anyway, and the test proved Carnell was not the dad. Still, a judge was unmoved.
She told me that regardless to the fact of what the DNA say, because I didn't contact her 24 years ago, it's gonna stick. Case closed, I gotta pay for the baby.
What the court focused on was this. Records show Carnell ignored a court order of the paternity case in the late 1980s. Action News pieced that chain of events together. Here's what we found.
The state then sent a process server to Carnell's dad's house in Highland Park. The process server was supposed to deliver to Carnell this summons. The process server then signed this summons saying that Carnell was delivered it, but refused to sign it.
I wasn't there, so I couldn't refuse to sign.
Indeed, records show Carnell had been arrested as a young man and was locked up when the process server came to the house.
I had no knowledge that I had a child support case pending against me.
As for why there was a case at all, someone had put Carnell's name on an application for welfare benefits, an ex who was in a jam when her baby was born.
I had to turn to welfare to get assistance. to take care of them, and I had to put him down as the father. That was the only way I can get assistance.
While she doesn't want to show her face, this woman is now fighting to help Carnell.
Everything is my fault that I put him through.
Do you think that he should have to pay this money?
No, he shouldn't have to pay it at all. Want everything to go away for him so he can go on with his life.
We still know it's not my child. Let's do what we need to do, what's right.
A few months ago, a judge did erase the debt that Carnell owed that mom of the kid that's not his, but not the debt owed to the state, $30,000 for welfare benefits paid over the years. He says he's going to keep fighting until all of the debt is erased. Kim Russell, 7 Action News.
So I'm wondering, like, is that, because that's a prime example of what does happen, what's been happening,
Yes.
what will continue to happen.
Yep.
You know, it looks like there will be no end, but that is, you know, and it's not even an extreme example. I know we have some other clips coming, but it's just really crazy when you look at this system, like,
You know, it's the system basically, it bullies a lot of men, and I can only speak for men because
right,
that's the perspective I'm coming from. And I'm not saying that women don't have their trials and tribulations,
right,
because as I said, the dynamics of it all is to divide and conquer.
right,
But this is absolutely ludicrous when you have a man that's exonerated by DNA.
right,
The woman comes forward and says, listen, the only reason I did this was to get public assistance. But now she created this bill and they want to get paid. So they don't even care
right,
that it's not his. Okay, we gave her this money. Somebody's going to pay. And guess what?
right.
You're that guy.
You're that guy.
But once again, like I said, well, did anybody try to locate the father who's responsible?
Right. The
To
biological.
me, he should pay the debt.
Right,
It's his child. Why should another man burden his responsibility?
right, right.
You know, but that's the system.
And I think what's also good to know, or good to start when you go to analyze this, is that the system itself is definitely set up, but people run the system. Right. And I believe that when individuals are in position to be able to make certain judgments and decisions based on what the real circumstances are, as opposed to just relying on the system to be able to filter it out, you know, those decisions need to be made. That you know, you need to be able to make conscious, rational decisions that people make for people,
Right.
in order to do what's absolutely right.
You know, but that word system in itself, when you think about it, it's a group of entities coming together to basically get a premeditated result, as we can see. So
Right.
the system breaks down because it has an agenda.
Right.
It's not always about what's fair, because we can look at this gentleman. There was other clips that, you know, I shared with you that we viewed.
Right.
You have men in London
Right.
that are going, we got Dame Dash. You know, he was saying how he asked the mother of his child not to get the same attorney
Right.
that Rachel Roy had.
Right.
She does it, and now the attorney basically schedules both of his dates, one on the West Coast, one on the East Coast at the same day. How are you going to be in two
Right,
places?
right.
And then he gets fined when he doesn't show up.
Absolutely.
And he has to pay this man's lawyer fees.
Right.
So as the lawyer being a part of the system, he is abusing his
Right.
position.
Right.
Because financially, Damon Dash is a target.
Right.
There's a millionaire. There's a mogul. He doesn't hide what he does.
Right.
So you know what? Let me milk it. I could get rich off this guy. All I got to do is keep doing this until they put warrants out on for his arrest.
Right.
Then he won't show up because he doesn't want to come get arrested.
Right.
You know, so you see it on every social scale,
Right.
and you see it across the globe. This is not just happening in New York. It's happening in Houston, Detroit, Chicago, like I said,
UK,
London.
right.
You know,
Right.
and the system needs an overhaul.
And you know, it's funny because when you look at America, and then you look at, you know, the clip that we saw from the UK, it's like, how can, you know, both of these systems, which again, they're supposed to be independent of one another, but they're really not, because they're breaking down in the same manner. So you could definitely tell that they were devised under or designed. Let me not say devised. Let me say designed. They were designed under those same principles and practices, and they break down in the same exact places. And it's something that even when we're working with the young men, we talk about this, and you talked about it in the last conference. Like, we need to pay attention to everything that we're doing, to the music that we're listening to the food that we're eating, to the individuals that we relate to, the young women that we deal with, and so on and so forth, to the degree that we are able to, put in place so much prevention just to not go through, things like this. Like, who thinks about that when you meet someone that you're attracted to?
Right.
And, then your life spirals out of control.
But I have to be honest. Like, I watch a lot of young folks, and I commend them because they're sticking together more so than I saw in our generation.
Right.
And a lot of people give these young men a bad rap or whatever. Okay, they may not have been prepared for their actions.
Right.
But guess what? He's still here. So, that has to have some type of merit to it, regardless of the circumstances. He may not be financially able to do a lot of things, but he's still there with the young lady, showing that, hey, I'm not abandoning you. I'm still here, which shows that he cares about the child. He cares about the family. And I see more and more young people sticking together, regardless of their circumstance.
Right.
And a lot of older folks forget when they talk about, babies having babies. Think about how old grandma was.
Right.
Okay, so if grandma is in her 60s, her daughter's in her mid-40s, and her grandbaby is a teenager, somebody was doing something kind of young, you know what I mean? So,
Right.
But grandma and grandpa stuck together, and they made it work because at the end of the day, that was the nucleus that held everything together.
Right.
The responsibility of it all, not necessarily looking at where you are today, because I truly believe if you hang in there long enough and your intentions are right, everything will come out in the wash. But you need that support system.
Right.
Which we had.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think sometimes people, and even the system, loses the focus, or the true focus, which is the child.
Right.
Which is the child. And this is what the child is learning. This is helping to develop the child. And what they're going through, with the mother, with the father that's not the biological father. And so much going on, people are angry.
Yeah.
This young man should not have to do, time, or even, be extorted almost.
Right. Well, that's
that's
what it is. It ain't
right,
almost.
Right. It's for a large sum of money. Like, in the system in one way proved me innocent, but then the system in this way is holding me or is making me guilty or holding me accountable for something that the other side already said is,
listen,
it's crazy.
You got a DNA test that says 0.00%.
Right.
What more do you need?
Right.
The sad part to all of this is when we look at the child, and from what he said in the clip, it's a young man.
Right.
What about that young man? What is his mindset? What is he going through?
Right.
Did my father not want me? Why did my mother make this choice?
Right.
These are the things that sort of push our kids to the street because they feel like they don't have anyone to talk to.
Right.
As you said, they become angry.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I've had my dealings with the court system, and I've seen men on the floor crying because they couldn't see their kids, but they was paying. I actually saw a brother balled up in the knot crying. Why can't I see my son? I saw another brother that I knew had a decent job. He's retired now. His child support is $5,000 a month. So he was working to kind of help out with himself because it was so exorbitant. He hurt his knee. He goes to the judge and says, listen, I got hurt. He tore his ACL. He's got this big scar. Like, He's not faking. He's in there on crutches. You know what the judge told him? You better get another job.
Wow.
And $5,000, come on. I mean,
A month?
this guy is not in the NFL and the NBA. He's
Right.
just a 9-to-5 guy.
He's a regular guy.
I mean, that's crazy to me.
Unbelievable. And who spends $5,000 a month on a child? That's not realistic.
That's not realistic
at all.
That's not realistic.
It's really, really crazy. So let's hit this next clip.
Yeah, this
And
next
let's
clip is a
Keep it
doozy.
rolling.
Well, a Houston father is facing 180 days in jail for overpaying his child support and over-visiting his 11-year-old son. His attorney and a community activist are now demanding answers. Randy Wallace joins us live with a story you'll see only on Fox. Randy?
Don, we all expect to see judges throw the book at fathers who fail to pay child support. But a father who says he's been doing the right thing now has an arrest warrant against him.
It's my responsibility to take care of it. You know, I brought him in this world, I have to.
Clifford Hall says he's more than happy to pay child support for his 11-year-old son.
I'm his father. You know, it's my responsibility to take care of it.
But Hall says when the amount of child support was modified, no one told him.
And I discovered that for some reason his employer was withholding a large amount some weeks, a small amount some weeks, zero amount some weeks.
And I didn't want to go to jail, basically.
So Hall quickly paid almost $3 grand in back child support. When Hall and his ex-wife were in Judge Lisa Millard's court last November, he owed nothing.
Opposing counsel testified twice that he's all paid up.
But the attorney representing the child's mother wanted Hall to pay her $3 grand in attorney fees, and Judge Millard agreed. Court documents also reveal Hall wasn't following the court's scheduled times to pick up his son, another modification he says he knew nothing about.
The judge ended up sentencing him to 6 months in jail.
When she said, remand you to the Harris County Jail for 180 days, my mouth just dropped.
This entire situation is shocking to me. I've never seen one like this.
Community activist Cornell X wants the state's judicial board to investigate.
The court failed the child. The court failed Mr. Hall. The system broke down.
I can't be there for my son in jail. I can't pay child support in jail. You know, this is not in the best interest of the child.
Judge Lisa Millard says Hall walked out of court after he was found in contempt, which she says is a big no-no. Judge Millard also points out Hall's attorney could have filed a motion for reconsideration. She says that would have allowed her to hear both sides again and reevaluate the situation. Hall's attorney is now working on an appeal, and in a few days, Hall plans to turn himself in, and Don will, of course, keep everybody posted on how this plays out.
It really is a strange situation.
Very, very, very strange. I mean, it kind of shows that sometimes these things can be changed, modified. Maybe one parent doesn't know, but it's very confusing, and you've got to wonder how this man could go to jail for this.
All right, Randy Wallace, thank you.
You're welcome.
And it's funny how, everyone sees it.
Yeah.
But those that are in charge of the system. And here, again, attorneys, prime example, the newscasters, they're pretty much saying, why should this have to happen to this young man? But
I mean, you're talking about a man that's spending too much time with his son and paying too much child support. It gets no more blatant than that,
right.
But people have to understand as well, and I talk about this all the time. The original 13th Amendment, Titles of Nobility Act,
absolutely,
was basically to ban those title nobilities such as esquire, attorney, which are all English terms, because that system was designed to keep the king rich and the poor poor.
Right.
And the crazy part about that is these individuals are the last on the list, because the responsibility of the attorney, the esquire, the lawyer, whoever, is to the government, the municipality,
right,
and the client last, but you foot the bill.
Right.
You know what I mean? So people have to realize that as well. And that's not to say that all attorneys are bad, because some attorneys are very excellent.
Absolutely.
And they do mean well.
Absolutely.
But it's just like anything else. How does that fare inside a system that was designed to cripple the little guy?
Right.
Regardless of what your title is.
Right.
The system.
The system.
So
the system.
People need to really understand that.
Right. And here we have it coming from, two different aspects. And again, the real situation is the child.
Yeah.
What's fair, what's right for the child? Is the system actually, what is their purpose? Their purpose is supposed to be to mediate, but it seems to be that I don't even know what to call it. I don't want to say it's punitive. I don't even know what to call it.
It's a debauchery. But once again, in this situation here, where the father, he knows this is his child.
Right.
You're trying to deliberately discourage this man from being relevant in his child's life. And notice, once again, it's not the woman. It's state papers saying, hey, you're only supposed to have him every other week. You got him every week. You don't hear the woman up there saying, he's seeing him too much.
Right.
It's like, state, mind your business.
Right.
Because, in a lot of these instances, and people need to think about this point too, if that father's not there, and if there's no positive role model there, male, and you don't have that balance of the estrogen and the testosterone,
right,
anything could happen. One or two things are going to happen. That kid is going to start rejecting mom because it's like, he gets big. You know how we get when we're 13 and you start feeling your hopes.
Right.
Moms can say anything. You love her, but when you hit the street,
that's it.
It's on.
It's on.
But then a lot of things can go wrong in the street.
Absolutely.
Now your son is in jail he might not have done anything. Could be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
How many times have we
he
seen
could
that?
associate himself with friends that may do something that he's not even aware of.
How many times have we seen that?
Right. So now, guess what? Dad is in jail. Son is in jail. Two healthy men in the system that will not be productive because now when you come out, what's going to happen?
Right.
People need to realize, like I said, you have a system, and the system is a bunch of entities that come to a premeditated decision.
Which doesn't always work out.
No.
To the betterment of the people.
No, not at all.
And that should be its design. It should be designed to work for the people, to benefit the people, and to keep people, responsible and accountable, as opposed to it being the iron fist that rules and says, regardless of the common sense aspect, regardless of the actual evidence and facts that we have, this is what we're going to go with, and we're going to ruin your life.
Yeah, I mean, there's still perceptions that are very old-fashioned and outdated about people, about gender, that really need to be addressed.
Yeah.
And the system can sometimes be abusive. And I'm not saying that it's always abusive, but these are two prime examples of where the system has gone wrong, and you hear the stories over and over again.
Right.
So, what are you going to do?
Right. And it's interesting, or it would be interesting, to see what happens with the child in both cases. What's going on.
I would like to find out as well.
Right.
Just to see the end result.
Right.
Out of my curiosity.
Right.
Right. Are these young men going to be productive?
Right.
It'll actually be interesting to see the parallels in their lives. Right. Because one such situation, we don't even know who the father is. The other one, we know who the father is.
We know who the father is.
He's not saying, hey, this is not me.
Right.
I love my child. I'm responsible. I'm stepping up to the plate. And he's being penalized.
Right.
As much as we hear, it's like, men need to be men. Now he's being penalized for being a man. It's just totally crazy to me.
Right.
Man. It's crazy.
Right. All right. So we're going to conclude with that. And we definitely want to thank you, viewers, for sticking with us all year. 2015 is coming to an end, and we're really excited about 2016. For those of you who may be in the system as far as child support or child care or relationship or whatever, we definitely wish you the best. From the AAU Teen Talk family, we thank you. And again, our sponsors.
Yes, the Whitney Foundation. Roger and Savannah Johnson, we want to thank them for making this all possible, and also for everybody who supported us out throughout the year of have contacted us and congratulated us on the show, as well as letting us know we're doing a good job. We thank you all, because without everyone, this wouldn't be possible. No one person does it all by themselves.
Absolutely. Thank you. Once again, AAU Team Talk, Youth Building Bricks, Youth Leadership Show. We are back. For those of you who are just joining us, welcome. And for those of you who are joining us for part two, we thank you for hanging around and being with us. My name is Herman Dunham Jr. I am your host, and I am with my main man,
William Teddy Portwine, your co-host. And as usual, before we get started, we have to thank Roger and Shavonna Johnson from the Whitney E. Johnson Foundation for making all of this possible. Without them, we would not be here. So very important to thank our sponsors.
Beautiful, beautiful. So today it's Christmas. Tomorrow's Christmas Eve.
Yes.
And so we're really like closing out a yearly segment. We want to thank all of you who've been with us, who watched the shows, Rick Ross, Corey Pegues,
Jeanette J.J. Brantz, America's favorite stunt woman.
Yes. She's doing a wonderful job. Who do we have? The Bricks people, Beautiful Men and Women.
Beautiful Men and Women, so many.
Oh, boy, we had the kids.
Yeah,
Charles and what was his buddy's name? Michael,
I believe, yeah.
Right, we had Philip Fentress. Yeah, so we've had quite a few, a variety of guests, all different walks of life. And the youth leadership piece is that we want to be able to help young men and women, especially young men. We want to talk about the issues, but we also want to be able to bring light to the solutions, because we know that so much is going on. So many people, young men, are having difficulties. So many parents are finding it difficult to really be able to raise a responsible young man today, you know, with so much going on, so many distractions and you know, times, racism, you know.
Oh, yeah. You know, I've been talking to a lot of young men, and the one thing that I'm hearing is, as far as leadership goes, they're saying, if it didn't work for you, why should we burden that? We don't want your leaders. This is a new day. We're our own leaders. And it's funny, I was talking to a brother yesterday, my brother Tony Bethia. He and I always stop and we build. And what I said was, well, why don't the elders kind of give the youth a blueprint, explain what went wrong in their strategy, what worked, and then allow them to carry that on and kind of fall back and be there as a support system.
Mm-hmm.
You know, instead of trying to come to the forefront. And, you know, no disrespect to any leader out there, try to represent a people that you're not connected to as far as being in the community and the situations. Because just like all of us, you get your information secondhand.
Right.
And unfortunately, a lot of times when it's too late, because the towel's already out and the coroner came. So,
right.
You know, I think that would be more feasible, and teaching them how to channel that anger in a positive way. And a lot of young men, frustration just come out because there's so many dynamics. We talked about last show, absenteeism with the father.
Right.
You know, when we did the show in the showcase in Harlem, just Brett doing the hug.
Piece. Right.
But that meant a lot of the young men who says, wow, nobody ever hugged me before.
Right.
Nobody ever told me they loved me before.
Right.
You know?
Amazing.
And that kind of set the tone.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a lot of dynamics. It takes time. But I think we should start speaking with our youth instead of to and at them.
Right.
And allowing them to express back to us what's going on in their minds and their hearts, so that we can get a better understanding.
Right.
of what's going on inside them eternally.
Right, right. And I had a wonderful opportunity to be able to do that the last couple of weeks, able to visit one of the city prisons and really kind of not just speak and motivate and talk to, but to listen and observe and learn. And, you know, that emotional piece, the frustration, the anger, the not knowing, you know, just of it all, and the processing of, you know, the information. You know, the brain is going through so much, the body is going through so much. And I watched, you know, young men act out in senseless fashion. That was harmless.
Right.
It wasn't, you know, they may have just, you know, stood up and leaned against the wall. But it was, you know, of course it wasn't allowed, but it was out of the norm. But it was based on, you know, what he's feeling, you know, emotionally. I've seen young men, one guy was so funny. Well, it wasn't funny, but it was funny that he was even able to share what he was going through. The speaker had asked, you know, how does your mother feel about you being here? Right. How do you think your mother, you know, what do you think your parent is going through, or parents? And she asked one young man, and he said, you know, I'm all alone. And it took a lot. You know, I don't even think individuals understood the magnitude of what was happening there, but it took a lot for him to say that.
Right.
And when I heard it, you know, I went up and gave him a hug and told him, I said, bro, you know, I know where you at, you know, but you're no longer alone. And what he was going through in that process, his body language spoke. And these are some of the reasons why these young people are acting out, not knowing what they're really doing, not knowing how to process some of this adult information that's coming, you know, fast and it's life defining almost, you know. Right. And we look at them as if, you know, they're inadequate or they're ignorant and so forth. And no, they're just being young. They're just being youth.
You know, when we look at them in that aspect, then we have to look at ourselves as failures. And we have to take responsibility for where our youth are at today. Because one of the most important things that you said was the unknown. When do we sit down and have these conversations?
Right.
A simple, hey man, you know, what's going on? How you doing?
Right.
You know, come on, take a ride with me. You know, let's go get something to eat. You know, and we're kind of responsible for creating this monster because we would rather blame the kids than to confront the system that affects all of us.
Right.
It's unheard of for the elders in the community to be scared to come outside and go to the store, looking over their shoulders every step.
Right.
You know, we talked about propaganda. Propaganda has a lot to do with it.
Right.
You know, from the inception, from our dealings, we've been painted as savages. So if that's what I'm constantly showing you, and it's more dangerous now because you have the live stream. Mm-hmm. If I keep showing you over and over again, your peers getting slaughtered in the street. If I keep showing you all of these young ladies ganging up on this one young lady, the cuttings, the stabbings, the killings, and I keep playing that reel in your head, you know, what do you think that your psyche is going to be like?
Yeah.
You know, just the word nigger. I hear it all the time, my nigger.
Right.
My nigger. The women are saying my nigger. Now, I don't care if you spell it N-I-G-G-E-R or N-I-G-G-A or N-I-G-G-A-H. It's the tone of the word.
Right.
And how you perceive yourself is in the word. Now, what I challenge kids on is, what is that word? Where does it come from? Is there a place named Niggerland?
Right.
That where nigger people come from? We know English people come from England. Scottish people come from Scotland. German people come from Germany. Where do niggas come from?
Right.
And then they start to get it. But then who planted this in your subconscious in order to get an end result? And people have to really pay attention to what their kids are viewing, the language that they use. You know, I work at FIT. I hear the profanity sometimes when kids get frustrated. And what I tell those young men is, curse words are for people who can't express themselves.
Absolutely.
Are you a dummy?
Absolutely.
No. So why are you cursing? There's a better way to deal with this.
Right.
You know. So it's a multitude of things, and it's not necessarily if you're in the hood, if you're in high school, if you're in college. You know, I think the environment affects us one way or the other.
Right.
And it's very toxic right now.
Yes.
It's a very toxic environment. Stressful times.
Yes, it is. And you know, it's funny, right, that we just spoke about the emotionality of young people. And then we kind of drifted off into the propaganda.
Yeah.
And then, you know, when we look at what's going on now, so it's, you know, now you're looking at the racism, the inequality of various things and so on and so forth. And I'm laughing in my mind because, like, this is the BRICS program.
Right.
Like, this is the Building BRICS program. This is what we do before we get into the aspects of brotherhood and relationship and so on and so forth. And it's just so relevant right now. It's just so prevalent right now that not only do these issues get discussed, you know, whether it's with the program or not.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't think that the program is going to spread or go viral throughout, you know, America right now in as fast as a video would.
Right.
But, you know, of course, it's a process. But these are the issues that's hitting right now. So whether you're dealing with the Building BRICS program or whether you're just having a conversation with your children, you know, this is the type of conversation that needs to be had. These are the type of elements that need to be spoken about so that individuals know how to better manage themselves and prevent,
Right.
you know, negative things
unfortunately,
from happening.
as far as the BRICS is concerned, you know, and I think about this all the time, and it's unfortunate that you can have a not-for-profit get funding because they prove that black people have a problem. But if you're a part of the solution and you're not patting the statistics to say, hey, we're in trouble, you can't get funding to do the same work. So once again, we talk about systems. And, you know, it's very unfortunate. And people say, well, why don't you do it yourself? And why don't you do it? There's no such thing as doing it yourself because you always have to function within that system. Whether you go to get a grant, still a government.
Right.
Whether somebody gives you some money, you're still dealing with an institution.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm quite sure that if you and I had the money, it wouldn't be an issue.
Right. It'd be gone already. Right.
You know, so we have to be very careful with that. You know, and I was watching the documentary Hoodwink about more black men in college and prison.
Right.
And the numbers were so far off, it just showed you how ridiculous it was. I'll get $100,000 if I say it was supposed to be like 600 and something thousand kids in college and almost 1 million in prison. And the way that they did it, they took 1 semester of college and pinned it against everybody in prison. Now, you and I know you could be in prison in these days. You go to prison as young as 7 years old, and that's not a joke. That's for real.
Right.
All the way up to whatever you could be there for life, whatever you keel over.
Right.
And I'm not trying to make light of lifers.
Right.
But this is the reality of it.
Right.
So you took 1 semester of a kid that might be in college for 4 years, 8 years max,
Right.
and put it against the whole prison population.
Right. Propaganda.
When they reversed that, it was actually 1.4 million in college.
Wow.
And under 700,000 in prison. But when he went to the college campuses and he talked to the young ladies and the men, the young ladies said, oh, more black men in prison. Some of them said, that's why I don't want to date a black man. So it shows you when somebody plants these things, like the word nigger, in your subconscious, the end result will come. And we have to be very aware of this because it's a very serious situation and it's very dangerous. We got women turning other women because they feel like men are not responsible.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Which is crazy.
Absolutely. It is. And you know, in my opinion, people, I use this saying all the time, people do people things. Yeah. So it's easy, you know, for me to excuse an individual for for any type of behavior that isn't in accordance with, you know, my principles or you know, my standards or whatever. And I say that to say that in the process of being people, in the process of hearing, you know, different information and believing different things, and then responding or acting, interacting based on what we've heard.
Right.
When the truth finally comes around, why not be receptive?
Right.
Why not at that point, you know, make a shift? It's easy to pivot. People pivot all the time. People pivot in sports. They pivot in business. What's wrong with just doing a slight pivot to say, okay, let me add this new information that is exact, you know, and better than the information that I had about me and my people, about the individuals that I really, you know, am bonding with and love, you know, and then use that and take that to you know, to kind of carry on the torch, as opposed to ostracizing and separating myself, which no one wins from that. No one wins from that.
You know, what I realize, because we're closer to the civil rights era than most of the young folks we deal with. And it's sad because a lot of the elders don't want to let go. You know, I understand that it took them a long time to get to where they had, a lot of sacrifice. But there comes a time where you have to grab someone and pass the torch.
Right.
You have to groom that next young man or young lady.
Right.
And it's very valuable because, like I said before, you can basically say, this is what worked. This is what didn't work.
Right.
And now they have an advantage that you didn't have from your experience. But there's not a lot of that going on because the money is plentiful. And I'm just keeping it real.
Right.
You know, and this is not to disrespect anybody.
Right.
This is the reality of the situation. You know, and the sad part is you have a lot of the local African-American leaders that are getting money from these kids. I was in a meeting. Matter of fact, after the show we did with Jeanette Branch, I went to a meeting with a certain senator. And they was talking about the youth and their interaction with the police and how unsatisfied and how unhappy they was. They're going to write a letter to Mayor de Blasio, we're not taking this. I asked a simple question. How many youth do each one of you have attached to your programs? And I was ruled out of order for asking that question.
Wow.
So what does that tell you?
Now, you know, it's funny that you bring that up too, because I went to a close to home program to do, you know, motivational speaking and so forth. But I have friends that work in various areas of organizations and, you know, they're getting into politics, they're doing advocacy work. And I see them posturing on these platforms and stages where they're giving out information and so on. We're going to do this, we're going to do that, and this is what needs to be done. And when I go into the Close to Home program, I don't see the results of their work in affecting the young people. And I'm like,
you can't be a beggar and a leader.
Right.
And that's as blunt as I can be.
Right.
You can't go to the coffers and beg and say, I'm a Garveyite in front of your people.
Right.
When we know who's controlling you.
Absolutely.
And that's been the downfall of most black organizations. We can look at the NAACP. Started with white money, Jewish money.
Right.
Served Jewish interests. How are you the NAACP? Founded in 1909. You get your first black president in 1975. And still don't own your national headquarters because you don't control the money, which is with the Carnegie Foundation and the Rockefeller Foundation and the Ford Foundation. See, this is what I want people to understand. It's a system. And you have a lot of brothers and sisters that will compromise. And I'm not knocking them because it comes a time where if you spend 25 years of your life doing something, if you mess it up, it ain't like you go get a job tomorrow. Not only do you not have a 10-year background gap, you got a 25-year back. I mean, like, this is it.
Right.
But it's like, can't we find some type of medium where everybody can benefit other than lip service?
Right.
You know, and I'm not faulting each side because I understand you got a family, they got to eat. Folks have situations, they need money.
Right.
Where's the middle ground? You know, you might allocate some funds towards you. Here,
Right.
brother, take that.
Right.
I need you to do this. Why isn't that happening?
Right.
As soon as you make sense and open your mouth, you
Out of order.
mark for death.
Right. Out of order.
You might as well be the public enemy logo. Because if they could, they would do that to you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's a shame.
Absolutely. And it is. And you know, I've always said, you know, and I've heard other people say, you know, how can we say that we want to do something for young people, but there's no young people in the room? There's none at the table. And then you can't have, you know, and, you know, I love, you know, different aspects of youth development, especially those youth that are in school. I like to call them the ones that are not at risk.
Right.
These are not the ones, I mean, you know, they're in school, they're doing what they need to do.
But we got to be careful about that because of the social climate of America today.
Absolutely.
The young man in Virginia,
absolutely,
who they tried to say was drinking, didn't have an ID, and the owner of the bar said no, he wasn't drinking, and he comes here all the time. Cops beat him up. This brother was valedictorian.
Right.
Actually, damn near honor roll.
Right. Right.
So you can't even say that they're not at risk anymore because of the social climate of
right.
America.
Right. Which puts them at risk.
Right.
And the point I want to make is, I'm tired of seeing the young people that go to, you know, preparatory school and Catholic school, charter school, whatever, you know, they're all dressed up and you have them in the background as if
right.
you've really done something that the parents did, that those
right.
teachers did, in order to keep those kids on the right track, as opposed to my man standing on the corner with his pants sagging down,
right.
you know, kind of lost, and it shows. Why haven't you sat down with him? Why haven't you questioned him? First of all, why haven't you fed him? And I'm talking about the
right.
physical food
right.
as well as the mental food,
right.
you know, the emotional food, the spiritual food, from whatever standpoint. So it's really crazy that individuals consider themselves to be successful, but they're not attached to the change.
Reality is a very hard thing for everybody to deal with. And people are not going to confront you if they really don't want to deal with reality. You know, and even myself, and I'm quite sure you've gone through it. When people ask questions and you give them an honest answer, they really don't want to hear that.
No.
And, you know, it can be very detrimental to what you're trying to do. You know, because people will try to stifle you because, you know what? You know, we're getting this money.
Right.
We can't let this guy in there.
Right.
He's going to mess it all
right.
up. You know, Master Johnson,
right.
He treat us good. He only beat us on Wednesdays. But he give us money 7 days a week. So this is what you're dealing with. And it's sad because I don't care how you remix it, how you respin it, what you name it. Unfortunately, the mind state
right.
has not changed.
Right.
You know, and like I always say, I don't care if you get money. Get your money. But
right.
make sure, as James Brown said, take some, leave some. Leave some on the table, you know what
right.
I'm saying?
Right.
To make sure that others
right.
are afforded the same opportunity that you have.
Right, that they can eat. Absolutely. And it's funny, man. People will compromise their standards, their principles, their way of living, their values, everything, their family,
yeah.
their friends,
yeah.
in order to get something that's really so temporary.
Yeah.
That really is, of course, is required. Of course, money is required.
Oh, without question.
But I don't know, man. It's something about the end of the day. Like, you know, I don't have that fluff in me. You know, we don't do the fluff thing. It's either we're going to do it. Let's do it correctly. Let's do it in order.
Right.
Let's do it productively,
right.
and so we could see the true success of it. You know, right. We don't want to lose the purpose or original intent of why we're doing it in the first place based on some dollars. Like, it's not worth it.
It's dollars, and it's also elitism. It's about perception, how people perceive me. It's about being accepted into this fraternity, you know, and it's not always a good thing. Brotherhood is great. We talk about that. That's one of our principles. But there's also a wrong kind of brotherhood.
Yeah.
You know, I heard a brother talking about diversity in his community. I said, that's gentrification, what you're doing. That's not diversity, because the folks that are here, you're pushing them out.
Right.
That's not diversity, brother.
Right,
That's
right.
gentrification.
Right.
Let's call it what it is. He never spoke to me again.
Oh, wow.
And I'm cool with that.
Right.
You know, but
let's call it what it is, though.
Don't give me salt and tell me it's sugar. You know what I mean? Like, don't do that to me, man.
Right.
Like, come on.
Put that in my coffee.
You know, don't taste good in coffee.
Right.
You know, so you have a lot of that going on, and you know, it's just a shame. It's just a shame, and I wish that more of us would pay attention to our so-called leaders. You know, what their true aim is, not just, you know, go for the good, feel-good speech.
Right.
You know, get involved. Go by the office. He's a public servant. See what he's really about.
Right.
You know, and that's what we're not doing. You know, the checks and balances are not there anymore.
Right. And it's a great lesson when you do that. Sometimes to learn what to do and what not to do. Same as support. You know, who to support and who not to support. But we definitely we want to thank all the viewers who have taken time out of their day to, you know, watch the show, keep watching the show, share the show. AAU Building Bricks Youth Leadership Show. We, you know, myself and Teddy Portwine here, we're working hard to continue to be able to bring you realness, be able to bring you value, be able to bring you solutions, to be able to, you know, help facilitate some change. So we really want to thank the viewers and, of course,
yes, our sponsors.
Absolutely.
The Whitney E. Foundation, Whitney E. Johnson Foundation, excuse me, Raj and Shavana Johnson.
Beautiful
and also, if you have anything that you would like to share with us about the show, you can reach me at William Teddy Portwine. I'm on Facebook. Just comment on the show. Tell us what you think. Tell us what you think we should talk more about. Other things such as that. Right. You know, topics
Absolutely.
that you may want to be interested in hearing.
Okay. Beautiful. You know? Beautiful. Okay. So we're going to be out. We wish everyone a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays.
Yes.
We love you. And
until next year,
right.
Be well, be blessed, and most importantly, be safe.
Absolutely. Thank you again.